for a person that probably doesn't know the organization, I would say look into the name itself and it will tell you a little bit about the organization. It is Impact Drivers. It's a youth organization that focuses mainly on issues that are faced by adolescent girls and young women in all the diversity in South Africa. And the main mission really is to drive an impact in and reach communities that we would ordinarily not be reaching, in the context of South Africa, and we pretty much work with those girls and young women and look at driving initiatives and programs that would make an impact, as we say in the name, an impact in their lives and a change.
We have come too far to drop the ball. I think most people are asking back, which ball are they talking about? What ball is this? So the campaign is just about us working together with the Global Fund, reminding the world that it's that time of the year again. The programs that we have been implementing in the previous years, they need to still continue, and we need the money to ensure that all adolescent girls and young women in all of their diversity from different backgrounds can continue to have this kind of programs. So we have come too far to drop the ball. It's just about that. Calling on the world, calling on our leaders to contribute at least $18 billion to the Global Fund, and we have like few days, 5 days left. We're a bit nervous because we've been all around the world, like on this movement. We have come too far to drop the ball, but we're not sure. Even though in the previous years we were able to meet the target, but we still have the nerves. Like COVID came, it hit us hard, so our leaders going back, digging in their pockets. It's
When we think about it in looking at just the 18 billion, it's very easy to think that it's a big number and it's unachievable and it's impossible. But I think the message that we're trying to say is that everyone needs to come to the party. We're not looking at one country, we're not looking at one continent, we're saying globally. As we're saying Global Fund, the Global Fund is a global fund, and we're looking at all leaders around the world to come to the party and invest in this fund for it to continue doing the impactful work that it's doing in people's lives by providing treatment to the people that need it. So I think it's a participation thing, more than looking at it as a big number. The moment we take it to split the pie around every single leader in every single country around the world, and you actually realize that it's not that much of a big number if everyone is actually coming in and investing, what they can.
And it's not just about the countries that receive funding from the Global Fund, but we are saying that even the countries that are just donors and they are not implementing, they can come together. Just a little that they have. From South Africa, we are expecting our leaders to contribute at least $13 million this year, and they have quite done a good job previously, because in the 6th replenishment they managed to contribute $10 million. So it's very much possible, and we have faith in them. So the reason behind adolescent girls and young women is saying that even though we see that there are many issues affecting the youth, but adolescent girls and young women are the ones that continue to be left behind. They are the ones that bear the most brunt. So the reason the main focus is on adolescent girls and young women is maybe because they are the ones who are left behind, and they are the ones that we believe. I think there's a quote that says, when you empower a girl, you empower the community or the nation. So when we empower them, they're able to go back to their communities and say, oh, okay, you are also, I'm gonna grab you by the hand, and we're gonna continue. So I think the reason we focus on the girls is because we want them to continue with their legacy, like to keep on empowering one another.
I think it's also like a numbers thing. Our founder likes to say that as much as it's not that we're saying that young boys don't face certain issues, but she always says, what are the numbers saying? And when you look at what the numbers are saying, they get you asking, where are we getting it wrong? How do we fix what it is, the rising numbers of certain issues? And more often than not, those numbers are looking at young adolescent girls and young women, numbers raising in HIV infections and so on and so forth. So I think it's a thing of trying to just balance the scales and take it from there.
My name is Sibulele Sipaca Nomnganga, and I'm the founder of Impact Drivers. The journey of how Impact Drivers started is an interesting one. This is certainly a passion project of mine because it's derived from my own personal story. I lost both my parents to AIDS by the time I was 16. It was really at the peak of the HIV pandemic, and there were a lot of things that as a country and as a society, as communities, we were dealing with. Aside from losing our parents, we were also left with a lot of stigma. And so I certainly know what it was like to be a teenage girl, left alone in the world, to navigate what this life is supposed to be without the two people who were meant to protect you and love you for almost a good portion of your life. And I had an older brother, still have an older brother, but he knew nothing about girl stuff and the decisions that I've been needing to make. And generally, boys and girls just fare life differently, especially at that point in our lives. And so I know what it was like when people came to my rescue, when people believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. There were angels on earth that just came in and saw something in my abilities when the world had kind of shunned me down, when the community I'd been brought up in and loved and knew had just turned their backs because they also too didn't understand the HIV epidemic, and they were scared. And so even though initially I didn't choose to start an organization, I think what then happened after that, in just learning and understanding the needs of girls and young women, I then decided, okay, I have now been blessed to be in a position where, for the early years of my life, I started working with organizations such as Love Life. Then I had the opportunity to work for Richard Branson as Virgin Unite executive for Southern Africa. And so I was on the one end of the opportunities. I was creating the opportunities for others. Where at some point in my life, I was on the receiving end of the opportunity. And so I had like an opportunity of understanding both these angles. And I was like, well, let me find myself somewhere in the middle, where I understand what girls and young women feel like. But because I'm on the creating end, let me create the safe space and the environment for them to be the best version of themselves. And that's how I started the NGO more than 10 years ago. So some of our work that we do is in 3 provinces. So we are in Gauteng, we are in the Eastern Cape, or we're in the Western Cape. I mean, as much as we are driven by numbers and where the need is, we've found that these are the areas that were most easy for us to access. And so the organization is really about comprehensive sexual education, but linking that up to many other things like life skills, as well as economic development and opportunities. And so those are the areas that were like, yo, come, we're here for it. And it's not easy because we talk about things that ordinarily families and communities don't talk about. We talk about, your first sexual debut and how that's supposed to be, and parents don't want to be having that conversation with their 15-year-old. And we're saying, well, mom, if your child is not having this conversation with you, she's having this conversation with an equally confused peer. And so where do you want the information to be? And a lot of the time, our girls and young women are telling us that they'd rather hear this information from the people they trust the most, and that is their parents. But they're not getting that information from their parents. And so that is where our program comes in. We've got peer educators and facilitators who have conversations with the girls over a 12-week period. And also because we understand that this kind of conversation cannot be done in a hit and run. It can't be done once off. It's a behavioral change. And we understand that these are some of the barriers that really keep, or these are some of the issues that keep getting the numbers of girls and young women rising every day when it comes to HIV infections. And so we understand that for us to be able to curb, HIV infections, we've got to be having these conversations. And so, yeah, we're in the West Rand in Joburg, we are in Cape Town, we are in Nelson Mandela Bay Metro in the Eastern Cape. And we work with over 500 girls per month in those areas. The partnership with the Global Fund is probably one of my most memorable and the biggest achievement, because as an organization, it's one thing to be funded locally, but it's another to be funded internationally. When you get your SMS from the bank that says international funds have been allocated, you know what it does? It validates the work that you're doing. It says somebody whom you have never even met is watching you, is tracking you, is seeing the work that you're doing. and they're validating me. And that's what the partnership with the Global Fund does for me.
For more stories like these, go to www.social-tv.co.za, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on our social mediums.